Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And Skyrim is a, let's see here in this list of adjectives, colossal game. Back in the breezy fall of 2011, at the time of its release, it was easily one of the biggest games of its time. But now that almost 7 years have passed, I'm pleased to report that such a sentiment still rings true. So today we'll be taking a look at yet another 10 tiny details you may still have missed in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Part 33, I believe. Starting off, one of the first quests offered by the Greybeards sends the Dragonborn to the ruins of Ustengrav to retrieve a legendary artifact known as the Horn of Jurgen Windcollar. Jurgen Windcollar was of course the legendary founder of the Greybeards, and apparently they want his horn for some reason. After the quest has been completed and the horn is in your possession, the Greybeards will teach the player's character a new shout, and formally recognize them as the Dragonborn, or Dovahkiin, as if you weren't already. However, once that's all said and done, the player will still have that legendary horn in their inventory. Now, for most people, it's of little significance, and at this point will either sit in there like a forgotten action figure at the bottom of a toy box, or promptly be discarded/sold. But should you decide to go back to Ustengrav on your own intuition, specifically to Jurgen Windcollar's tomb, the player can actually return his horn and receive a free dragon soul in return. In the grand scheme of things, it's not all that much, but early in the game it can be a little bit of help. And besides, it's rather funny to imagine Jurgen Windcollar's ghost rewarding the Dragonborn in gratitude. Next on our list, the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary is the secretive underground bunker in which the guild exists away from any prying eyes. The door to the sanctuary can only be opened by answering a riddle that will be given to the player once you've interacted with it. However, you'll only know the answer after Astrid has told it to you early in the faction's quest line. But take a look at the door itself, specifically its design. A skull with a bloody handprint watches over a skeleton, with a pile of 5 smaller skulls and a dagger jammed into one that sits at the bottom left-hand corner. This is of course an allusion to what the Dark Brotherhood considers the origin story of the Night Mother, whom, according to the myth, birthed 5 children with Sithis, and proceeded to kill all of them years later on his orders. It's believed that not too long after that incident, the locals of the village she lived in murdered the Night Mother in retaliation, and then she proceeded to ascend into this weird pseudo-godhood. At least, that's the TLDR. And apparently, the Dark Brotherhood wanted to pay some homage to that. Now, the more I think about it, the more I think this probably wasn't a good idea, all things considered, however. As if the Dark Brotherhood's trying to remain in secret, i.e. not be discovered, they probably shouldn't plaster their origin story and logo at the front of the door. Meanwhile, they act like it's some big mystery how their faction's in decline and they keep getting their sanctuaries discovered and raided by Imperials. You're literally advertising where you live in... Never mind, you get the idea. This is both bad branding and bad secrecy on part of the Brotherhood, but altogether, a nice little detail by Bethesda. For a third spot, should the player purchase a property within one of the game's major settlements, adopted children who happen to move in with you will actually comment on some of that town's citizens and themes. For instance, children in Whiterun's Breeze home will remark that the young girl Braith is a bully, and that Lars Battleborn needs to stand up for himself. Kids in Solitude's Proudspire Manor will often mention dreaming of becoming an Imperial Legionnaire when they get older. And boys in Riften will remark that Brynjolf, a prominent Thieves Guild member, is very nice to them and promise to teach them things when they grow up. Now, whether becoming a thief or legionnaire is something you desire in your child's future, well, that's for you to be the judge of. Coming at number 4, Brunwulf Freewinter is an elderly Nord living in Windhelm. He's most notable for his constant support of the city's Dark Elves, whom are forced to live in a slum called the Grey Quarter, and are all too often the victims of racism and marginalization by the city's mostly Nordic population. Brunwulf, at times, seems to be the only Nord sticking up for the Dunmer, and he's highly critical of Ulfric Stormcloak, whom he argues isn't doing enough to help. Should the Imperial Legion capture Windhelm in the Civil War questline, Brunwulf will in fact be installed as Jarl. Well, it appears he may also have a previously undisclosed brother, or at least significant relative. The book, A Dream of Sovngarde, tells the tale of a Nordic Imperial soldier in the Great War, prior to the recapture of the Imperial City, also known as the Battle of the Red Ring, whom claims to have had a dream in which he visited Sovngarde and met a number of legendary Nordic heroes during this experience. And this book was written by a man named Skarden Freewinter. Considering Brunwolf and our mysterious author over here are the only two known characters in the Elder Scrolls with such a surname, it's reasonable to assume that the two share some relation, especially considering that Brunwolf also served in the Great War himself. The author could be a sibling or potentially even a parent, uncle, or cousin of his. Whatever happened to him, however, is unclear. Since he's obviously a Nord, it seems like he would have returned to Skyrim after the war, like most of his kin did. Though clearly we can't find him in the game. Whatever fate befell Skarden, only Bethesda knows. Halfway through at number 5, we've talked about Skyrim's rabbits before on this channel. Adorable fuzzy furballs that passively wander Skyrim's forests, spending their time avoiding wolves and hunters, while also conveniently looking for food. Now, again, these beings are completely passive, meaning they will not attack the player, even if the player attacks them first. However, rabbits are still susceptible to the effects of the Frenzy Illusion class spell, which transforms any being, be it human or bunny's mentality, to become hostile for a short period of time. Normally, when used on deer or other fauna, the Frenzy spell will simply make them attack the player. But when used on bunnies, while they'll still technically turn hostile and chase the Dragonborn around, they're actually incapable of attacking or inflicting any damage, as Bethesda never actually assigned them an attack animation or damage stats. Meaning, even when hostile, all they do is sort of follow you around. To my knowledge, this is the only being this applies to. Every other character in the game at least has the potential to do damage, but just not rabbits. Even under the influence of magic, these cute fluffballs won't even inconvenience the Dovahkiin. 6th, War Maidens is an armory store in Whiterun, operated by Adriana Vanici, who runs the blacksmith, and her husband, Ulfberth Warbear, who handles the counter. Well, that name, Ulfberth, is actually a reference to a specific type of sword used by the Vikings in and around the 800s to early 1000s, called the Ulfberth. The more you know! Next, Cliffside Retreat is a dungeon that can be found in the Reach. It once served as a bit of an inn and tavern for the bandits in the area, until, very recently, it was overrun by a tribe of Falmer, who happened to have tunneled into the location seemingly by accident. At the time the player arrives, most of the bandits have very much already been murdered to death, though some can still be found alive, desperately fighting to stay that way. Towards the end of the cave in which the Falmer emerged from, the player can find the corpse of a Breton named Rod, whom is revealed in notes back at the tavern to in fact be the innkeeper, and is even referred to as Longhammer. You can draw from that what you will. Unfortunately, our friend here has a Falmer sword jammed into him, and is next to a Longhammer. Well, this is in fact a nod by Bethesda to a Dungeons & Dragons podcast featuring none other than Will Wheaton, broadcasted many years ago, where a character by the name of Rod Longhammer assisted Wheaton in not dying, and was in fact quite a hero. Alas, clearly his Skyrim counterpart didn't enjoy such a fate. Coming at number 8, Namir Ezra is a rather common mushroom-like ingredient that can be found growing across Skyrim. It's quite a small thing, no taller than the average man's foot. However, in the dwarven ruins of Blackreach, just outside a long abandoned Dwemer building in the central cavern, is a giant version of this plant, proudly surveying the ground. It's many times bigger than the normal size, seemingly around 4 times as large, maybe a little bit bigger. Strangely, this rot boasts nothing significant other than its size. When collected, it will still only yield 1 Namir Ezra, and behaves like any other wood when consumed or used in alchemy. I'd make a joke about size here, but it's a little short anyway. Getting close to the end here at number 9, Elven Warhammers are designed to have a head that sort of resembles that of a hawk. This is of course to represent Auriel, one of the many divines worshipped by the elves, but is of particular significance, as he's sort of thought of as the Zeus of the Elven pantheon, if you will, being the most significant of them all. And he's often portrayed as an eagle, hawk, or other winged bird with talons. Should you acquire one of these Warhammers for yourself, you'll find that from a stats perspective, it's alright. It does a decent amount of damage, though all things considered would probably do more if the elves actually tried to make it a weapon rather than shape it like a bird for some reason, but hey, I'm not here to judge. And finally, last on our list, We've gone over whom Heimskr is many times before on this channel. The priest of Talos standing outside of his shrine and statue in Whiterun. He spends all day preaching sermons about how great Talos Stormcrown once was, and trying to convert people or at least make them more enthusiastic about his religion. He's very disappointed, to say the least, with the banning of his worship, and is defiant of such a rule. However, while definitely not his religion, Heimskr seems to be hiding something very dark. Inside his home, which will be destroyed after the Battle of Whiterun in the Civil War questline, you can find a series of human skulls, as well as a couple poisons and potions lying around. Now, in fairness, I'm no expert on Talos worship, but I don't think he asks of his followers to carry around human remains and poison. Whatever Heimskr's up to, only he knows, and he is not talking. Unless it's about Talos, that is. But with that, we are going to wrap up yet another 10 tiny details you may still have missed in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, Part 32, actually. I was wrong at the beginning, I just checked. Which of the ones featured on this list did you find to be the most intriguing for yourselves? And what tiny details, Easter eggs, references, or allusions do you know of that I've yet to cover on this channel? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Again, thanks for stopping by, everyone, and hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everybody.